Hey everybody, welcome back outside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. It is spring practice number 2 for the Ohio State Buckeyes. That is Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward, and another half-hour viewing period in the books. So much to learn. Mm-hmm. Where should we begin, Bill?
Probably on the offensive line.
Oh, okay,
right?
yeah,
right?
sure.
It all starts up front. Honestly, I don't have many takeaways because they're still not doing team stuff. Like even when they do. There's been times in the past an individual drill where they're still line up as like a full 5. They're not even doing that. It's like guards and guards, tackles and tackles, centers and centers. So it's kind of hard to get a feel for where things stand. I will say that like Zen Milhalski was going first at the right tackle spot almost every time in the reps that we got to watch. Carson Hinsman and Vic Cutler were kind of split, even to the point where they were doing half field drill when we were leaving. Half field, they have a line on each side of the field. They were both up at the same time. So I don't know if there's a ton of clarity there, but even if there's not, I think it speaks to what Carson Hinsman has done that there's not a lot of clarity there because he's squarely in that mix.
So what do you make, and maybe this is just me not paying close enough attention to the offensive line on Tuesday or previous practice, like it seems like they're running more. Are the offensive linemen running more?
It felt like it. They were doing a cool drill where like they would come out of the chute like low and then hit a pad and then come off of that and then chase down that little tackling dummy they have on wheels with this like remote controlled. Side note, I would like to drive that if I could. But yeah, they are running quite a bit. I don't know. Part of that's conditioning, but I think part of that too is, I don't know, wanting to shore some things up in the run game a little bit too.
Yeah, I think Berman might be just a different emphasis from day 1 to day 2 because day 1. So the way we structured it was I watched the offense on Tuesday. Bill watched the defense on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. We switched today. Berm goes everywhere. He's the jack of all trades, and he's got the photo equipment. So anyway, I was watching the offensive line, and I thought that Tuesday was more of a power day, perhaps, at least for the first 30 minutes that we were in there. A lot of sled work, and they did that almost extensively from what I was watching in the early periods of practice, and I didn't see a ton of that sort of running. So it may just be, here's what one day is, here's what the next is.
Yeah, I mean, when you see that, you get a chance to really kind of note some of the athletic, traits of these guys. And boy, Luke Montgomery stood out to me this morning, just aside from the fact that he looks physically like he belongs at Ohio State, which, 2 years ago when he was a junior at Findlay, he was very skinny. Didn't really seem like he knew what he was doing all the time on the offensive line. He looked very competent and physically looks really, really ready to contribute. And he was moving, man. I mean, I know he's a former basketball player. Luke is one of his best attributes is just athletic ability, but you can see how he could play right tackle with his feet the way they are.
Yeah, if you were to rank who looked like the most fluid athlete, Luke would be pretty high up. Yeah. Tegra Shabola, for as large as he is, I think was pretty impressive with the way he moved. Donovan Jackson obviously is always impressive with that. And third period, they split into interior and tackles, and Luke was with the tackles. So I think you and I are kind of on the same page where we like him as an interior guy long term, but they are very much giving him that opportunity to tackle to start.
And I think it's just watching, again, to put a point on the offensive line, watching them today, I seemed to notice Donovan Jackson being much more vocal than I remember him being a year ago.
He was coaching up Vic Cutler at one point.
And he needs to be that guy. I mean, if you're talking about replacing 3 starters and moving other guys around, Donovan Jackson has to be the linchpin, and he certainly seems to be embracing that, which if you would have talked to him in December when we talked to him in the Peach Bowl, he was talking about how he needs to just be that guy. He knows he needs to take the bull by the horns, and seems like he is.
Well, there's only 2 options to do that on that unit, and I don't think Matthew Jones, he's more of a lead by example guy. Yeah. He's never going to speak out. So that role may fall on Donovan Jackson by default. So it's up to him to make the most of it. Down on the other end of the field, it sounds kind of weird to say it, but the first person that really jumped out to me physically today was Cody Simon. We've seen him play a lot of football, but I tried to think why that was. Why does it feel different for him? And then I kind of reflected back on the shoulder injury and missing, spring ball and a lot of reps last year recovering because he was coming off of that. He was playing hurt at the end of that season where he got all of his main reps, really, became a starter, kind of took a back seat for a little bit to Steele and Tommy last year, was the third guy in. He still played a decent amount. And Bill, you said on Tuesday that you thought he played fine when he was out there. But physically, I think sometimes it has to be said that if you don't get to go through winter workouts and mat drills and you're recovering from a serious shoulder injury and you don't get to do the bench press, you're not going to make the same gains that other players are physically. And I'll be curious to know how he feels about that. I didn't ask him about that during last season. We didn't talk to him a great amount, but how he feels, that impacted his ability. playing through that. He's probably never been in a situation quite like this to prepare for a season of football. And again, they didn't have full pads on. They weren't lined up. But I took notice of it. I thought that he was looking pretty good out there.
Yeah, I took notice of him the other day. I took notice on Tuesday when Jim Knowles was talking about Cody Simon, and he talked about wanting to rotate linebackers more. And the first thing, we were all like, all right, talk about CJ Hicks. And he starts talking about Cody Simon. And on one hand, you're like, man, I want CJ Hicks to play. But on the other, like, Cody, I think, did earn that last year. He was, in my opinion, pretty good when they put him out there. Certainly better than he was the year before. I think a lot of that is what you're talking about, the ability to just have a normal offseason, but also for all the linebackers, like, I've said it before, an existence where you're not getting run over by an offensive lineman the second the ball is snapped. It's funny what happens when you have like space and time to do your job, and Cody seemed to make the most of that last year.
Cody's one of those guys who, coming into the spring, there was a lot of discussion like, where does he fit? Where does he fit? And then as you listen to Jim Knowles on Tuesday talking about how they really only ran the jack like 15% of the time last year, there was a lot of reps for Cody, and I would imagine that part of his mentality coming into the spring is hoping that things stay that way, because that's enough reps to, say, hey, I have no reason to go anywhere else. And I think that as you start to look at the roster and you go, well, they only play 2 linebackers. Why would a guy like Cody Simon stick it out and stay here for his final season? But like now you sort of see the piece of why he would, because there's plenty of reps there. And as you guys attested to, like, he looks the part. And it's just good to see him healthy and doing his thing.
Yeah, other guys that I thought looked the part, Kenyatta Jackson just seems to have the frame to create problems. I don't know if he will. I still think that there were times like, the veterans, JT or Jack, would pull him to the side and be like, let's do this a little bit, I don't know, aggressively. I'm not going to use any of their words. I couldn't hear them all, but they were doing a lot of coaching up of him. I think everybody, and Zach Harrison alluded to this last week in Indianapolis, knows how good he can be. Yeah. And Kenyatta maybe hasn't figured that quite out yet. But man, you look at somebody else who made the most of January and February. He was already built pretty strong when he got here. It certainly had the height and the frame and all that already, but you can see him filling out a little bit more on top of that. Just kind of a long, lean dude now. Strengthening up that upper body as well. That could be pretty significant. I think he jumped out. I thought Denzel Burke got a closer look at that. I also mentioned him on the Stock Watch on Wednesday. Just the mentality, but also physically, you can tell that. Again, another situation where if you're fully healthy, you get to do more things and prepare better.
He looks bigger.
He looks bigger, and that's big because we know that he's going to have to play more physically, not just as a tackler. And Bill and I talked about in the draft on Thursday morning, but also at the point of contact, lining up and playing man coverage. Can he do that more consistently? And if you're built like that, you probably can.
I think so. We were having conversations on the board at OhioState.Rivals.com about like the pass rush and like, whose fault is it? Has the defensive line really been like as bad as we say it is sometimes, or not as good as it used to be? And I think a lot of that actually has to do with secondary play. So if you have a guy like Denzel Burke who is stronger at the point of attack and get a good jam and press man coverage, obviously Davison Igbinosun I think can do that with his size too. That gives those guys up front an extra half a second to turn like the Zach Harrison play in the Peach Bowl into a sack.
Think about how many more sacks Zach Harrison would have had the last 2 years if he had an extra half second to get to the quarterback. I mean, it's huge when you think about that. And I was watching quarterbacks today. I mentioned Kyle McCord on the Stock Watch. I really just like the demeanor, and he again today, seeing him out here, he just doesn't seem to be stressed or pressing anything. He's throwing the ball well. Like it's in timing. The rhythm's there. He's not overthrowing. He just seems to really be in a good headspace, and I think that is really encouraging for anybody who's wondering, like, how do you replace 2-time Heisman finalist? I also really liked what I saw to Tristan Gebbia. Like, he's throwing the ball pretty well. I mean, the reason you bring in a guy like that is because you want a veteran presence in the room with Kyle and with Devin Brown. But, I mean, he looked like a guy who can put the ball where it needs to be, and that's important to have that extra body there for Ryan Day.
Yeah, I think we won't talk about it a ton, but when you talk about getting good looks in practice, if you have a quarterback who has started at the Power 5 level who can make those kinds of throws, that will make your defense better in the long run. So I do think that matters. I thought Kyle was a little more consistent with his throwing motion when I was watching the quarterbacks. It was just routes on air, but the ball placement and just like the mechanics of it all looked a little smoother kind of pass to pass than it did for Devin. When Devin was all synced up, looked fine. The ball jumps out of his hands, but sometimes it'd be a little low, a little high. Kyle was pretty like kind of down the middle the whole time.
Many times on our platform and others, like Kyle McCord is a professional quarterback. Like he is going to be a professional quarterback, and you can see that is a kid who has a lot of just like perfect mechanics.
Yeah.
When he has time to set and throw, it looks exactly how you want it to look.
We kind of buried the real lead from Thursday morning, which was tug of war.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about tug of war. Yeah.
What an interesting way to start. Again, I mentioned this on Tuesday. Like, they're doing a lot of different things, juicy things
I've
to
never
get
seen
things
that
popping.
before, right?
I've never
Yeah,
seen them do
yeah.
tug of war at the start of practice. And if you're keeping score at home, which you should be, the offense won 6-0.
Well, there were two, competitions, 3 players each. So they won 6-0, but it's like 3-3. So it was the running backs versus the safeties, and then the tight
How
ends.
is it 3-3? What does that
I
matter?
don't know. There's 3 people on each. There are 3 people, right? So they get each guy gets a point. That's how I'm viewing it.
So it was 18.
No, I think
so
it was
18-0.
No, it was.
They had 6 matches.
It was 6 different matches, offense versus defense, and
I
the
didn't
offense
see
won
it.
all of them.
No, that's not true. They only had 2. They had the running backs versus safeties and the tight ends versus the linebackers. That's it.
There were 3 ropes
There were
out there.
3 ropes.
All I was watching was
1, 2, 3. Then they did it again.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
See, this is the problem sometimes when you're looking through a camera lens. You get very narrowly focused. They really had 3 lines.
Yeah, they sure did.
Who else went? I saw the tight ends versus the linebackers. Tight ends
Offensive
went-
line versus defensive line.
Oh, really? That would make sense. Who'd the quarterbacks go against?
They did.
They said they actually started to say, "Quarterbacks, get out of here!
Yeah, I'm so
Quarterbacks, out of
I'm
here!"
laser focused. But
They were on the far side of the field.
yeah, that's
in
that
your
makes a lot more
defense.
sense. It
Yeah.
didn't really happen. They were just making this up.
Should have started with you,
I
Bill.
liked the linebacker effort. They lost to the tight ends, but those were some big tight ends. And there was Reed Carrico, C.J. Hicks, and I don't even know who the third linebacker was, to be honest, because Hicks was trying to do a lot of the heavy lifting and almost brought him back. But it's a cool way to just get the juices going, and for guys like G. Scott are out there, I mean, G was out there. I don't think he had gloves on, which is sicko mentality.
Yeah,
Oh, they're inside. Oh, yeah, doing tug of war with no gloves is
you got to get some
get a little
work
chalk
gloves on.
maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was surprised that the running backs beat the defensive backs.
I was surprised
Especially
that
because Chop wasn't even in it.
yeah, Sonny Styles ran out there. I was like, all right, that's a win, and then the whole group just got pulled right across.
Sonny and Josh Proctor out there together. I'm like,
Because Chip Traynham is a madman.
Yeah, that's
I think that this was, looking at the team today, the one thought I kept having, like, Chip Traynham is a different type of athlete. Like, you don't see a lot of guys like him. Every time he runs through a drill, he is exploding through a drill. And
Yeah.
I keep going back to that Michigan game last year, and, like, he was really good. And
on short notice, really.
I don't know what it means long term, but, like, that running back room, if everyone's healthy, is pretty freaking stacked.
yeah. If everyone's healthy, it's almost like I don't know. Anyone can play. I don't think you're losing anything. But
Bring back the diamonds.
Yeah, obviously everyone can't play, so I don't know what they're going to do. But they do have 5 capable guys there, if everyone's healthy.
All right. Anything else that you?
I thought it was good to just see the guys who aren't participating, and we mentioned this on Tuesday with Travion. Like, he's out there, he's doing some stuff, but Julian Fleming, Emeka Ibuka, Tommy Eichenberg, like, those guys are here conditioning. They were in full dress like everyone else, so it's not like anyone. I thought
Jacob James was there too.
Yeah, Jacob's doing stuff. Nobody's like wrapped up. Nobody's got braces on. Nobody's on crutches or anything like that. So I think that if you worry about, okay, what's wrong with this guy? How serious is this? Nothing seems to be like serious long term for any of these guys that we've seen. They're all it's all precautionary.
Court Williams did have a sling.
Court's got his sling. I think he was born with that on. I don't think he's ever taken
I've seen
it
him
off.
with it on far more than I've seen him with it off.
So
Yeah.
I'm beginning to wonder if that's sort of like a security blanket for Court.
It may well be. You hope to see him out of it soon enough, but again, he won't do anything this spring. A lot of other Buckeyes in action, of course, though, on Thursday morning at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. These are some snap judgments right away. We'll have a lot more coverage. The wide receivers, or some wide receivers and linebackers, we'll talk after practice. We'll have some coverage of that, of course, on the podcast daily and also at ohiostate.rivals.com. You can join now to get all of that spring coverage for free for 30 days using code DTE30. That's Bill, Burnham, I'm Austin. We will talk to you later on the podcast.